The characters throughout all your novels are quite distinct and quite different. I mean, do you find that they appear to you sort of fully formed? Do you put any of yourself into them, or is it more as the plot progresses you find out who they are more?
It's a bit of all of them. I tend to keep myself out of characters as much as possible, metaphorically, because it's like because that allows you to create very different types of characters. I think in my very early books I was writing when I was writing very early books for Scholastic, it was some of the characters in there were just basically me, and it obviously started becoming, they obviously started being the same, and so to some extent I now tend to try and think of a main character that has a real conflict or something, that it doesn't have to be anything to do with me, but something that will keep me interested. A lot of the reasons why the characters change and develop and become more distinct is because I get more bored of characters. If I've done a character type, then I'm sort of done with that. And the last thing I want to do is repeat it over and over. I mean, it's the old thing. I can never understand why people write the same archetypal hero in books and so on, because I would just find it staggeringly boring after you've done it 2 or 3 times.
Do you find the same thing is true for your settings? I mean, you don't want to go back and write another book in the world of the Fae, or another Saramir book, or another...
Well, there's always a temptation for that, and I always do have a tendency where I never really close off the world completely in such a way that I can't really ever revisit it. But so I do have a fondness for those worlds, and there's always a kind of idea that I'd like to go back and do it, but it's always more tempting to do something new. It's always nicer. As the story goes on, you tend to clutter it with all the things that have happened, and it's often easy just to kind of create a new blank slate. And also because the settings are also, to me, tend to be a great deal of a part of the point of the story and the thrust of the plot, and so the settings are very intertwined with that. It's often necessary to create a new one to better emphasise the point that you're trying to make.
When you wrote about Orna in the Fae, she's a mother and an assassin and a woman, all things which I don't think you are. How easy did you find it to sort of create that voice for her? Or how hard?
Well, I don't know, that was one where there is an old cliche about characters finding their own voices, and it's like once, now I say that, I did write half the book and then throw it in the bin and start again because it wasn't right. So yeah, technically I suppose it was difficult.
Did much change between that first attempt?
Yeah, quite a lot actually. I mean, the whole plot was changed around and so on, because it became about Orna instead of being, it was a much broader, wider story before that, and when I threw it away and restarted, it became much more focused and much more focused on Orna and her particular conflict, which is generally a sensible way to do it, I think. And it made, I mean, to me, it made the book a great deal better. But yeah, as to getting ahead, it's a case of you really sort of set them going and see what happens. With the Tales of the Ketting J, there's a crew of 7 kind of very distinct characters, and it was difficult to know when you essentially kind of put them on the starting line and set them running, and you see who gets ahead and who doesn't, and they're the ones that you give more quote-unquote screen time to. There was some of the Doctor of Tales of the Ketting J, who was a very sideline character when I originally started writing it. It ended up being my favourite by far, and he's so much fun to write. And he just flies off the page, but you never really can tell until you've started a little bit.